Hello, welcome in or welcome back to my channel. My name is Deb from DG Reads, and it is time for another craft and read. If you're not familiar with my craft and read series, it's pretty new. I've only done a couple of them, but it's something that I've been doing for quite a while over on my Bookstagram, where I share the crafts that I'm up to, the jewelry I'm making, whatever it may be, while I audiobook. And I decided to bring it over to BookTube because I have a ridiculous backlog of craft projects sitting around my house. I have a subscription that sends me a craft project every month, and I don't do one of them every month. These have been piling up for a very long time. In our first ever craft and read, I believe it was, I picked the craft I was going to do. It turned out the craft was broken. It had boxes stacked on top of it. It was not in good condition. We had to scrap that one, move on to another one. Still got an extra one out of the house, so not a bad thing. But these types of things may happen. I have a spinner wheel that I have just put together. It's not the most exciting of spinner wheels on your end because they don't actually say what the crafts are on these. Not all of the crafts I have in a stack are even labeled, but I have labeled each box with a number. So when I spin the spinner wheel, it will give me a box number and I pick that craft. Then we look and see what that craft is. And the idea with this one is to pick a book that somehow correlates with that craft. If it's a craft that involves flowers, I might pick a floral cover. If it's a craft that is going to be primarily blue, I might pick a blue cover. It just needs to be loosely in some way justifiable in my brain for how it connects to it. I was not planning to do a craft and read in June just because June's very busy, because I am participating in Amazing Readathon from Brie at 4 Paws in a Book. So that is part of my thinking process here. I either need to pick a book that I know is going to work for one of the main prompts for the readathon that we haven't gotten to yet, because then I can just read it now, submit it when we get to that prompt. Or I can see what my next sightseeing prompt is for the current leg of the journey. I am filming this during leg 2. I don't know when this is going to go actually out, but at this point we just got the prompt for leg 2, which was a book you don't own, which I have already fulfilled, and I'm working on my sightseeing reads. I last landed on the game board on a book written under a pseudonym. So let's real quick see what my next prompt will be so I can see if whatever book we pick for this will work for that. Okay, I've got my dice app up. Let's see what we roll. Ready, set, and roll. Okay, we got a 3. So since I'm currently on the spot at the top that says a book written by an author using a pen name, that gives me the option to find a book with "and" in the title or a book with a royal word in the title. Okay, so we'll see if we can find a book that works for our craft and for either one of those prompts. I'm okay going either direction, or we'll figure something else out. Sorry, this was a really chaotic introduction. This is why I wasn't planning to do a craft and read this month, but my TBR game said that I needed to. That was one of the prompts I got. So we are going to figure this out. All right, so with that, we are going to pull up our spinner wheel and figure out our craft. That's the next step. Okay, so ready, set, and spin. Okay, 48, that's one of my more recent ones. 1 being the absolute oldest one I have, 52 being the one I just got. So let me go find that and I'll be right back. Okay, it's a pretty little box, is number 48. So let's see what it is, because I have no recollection. Adults and Crafts is the brand of the subscription box, in case anyone were to be curious. Okay, we are looking at a terrazzo tray kit. I'm not going to give you all the different instructions in here because it is part of the subscription that you get them all, but I do get resin casting powder, resin liquid, 8 pigment colors, silicone mold, mixing cups, spread art, sealant wax, sandpaper, gloves, mixing sticks, and wax paper. I am required to provide a paper towel and water. And with the subscription, you do get step-by-step instructions. I'm not going to zoom in on all of them. Like I said, gloves, sandpaper in a pretty purple, and they sent a actual little box for the kit, which has tape on it. And within this, I've got the resin powder, the tray mold, resin liquid, sealant wax, the different colors that I have to choose from. Looks like a good variety. A little sandpaper in black this time, and some different cups and things like that. So let's see what we're going to be doing here and how we pick a book for this one. So these are the different examples they provide of some of the samples they created. Basically, you can do any color you want or color combination you want using the options. I've got a black, light blue, red, a blue, a golden, a dark green, a purple, and a brown. So that gives us some ability to play around with things. I kind of like the idea maybe of doing like the dark green and the light blue, or I could go very different and do like the dark red and golden. Because I think really, ultimately, this is going to give me options to pick a book I want to read and maybe make the tray to match it. Maybe we do a little bit of a reverse system for this one. Okay, hear me out. I'm about to make probably a really dumb decision, but Reign of Shadows and Endings is something that's been on my list for ages. I finally picked up a copy of it because there's this deluxe edition that came out. This is by Melissa K. Rorick, who wrote the Lady of Darkness series that I absolutely ate up, and friends have really, really loved this one, and I've been wanting to get to it. The dumb part is it's a 22+ hour audio, so I'm definitely going to take longer to read this than I am to do the craft. So there's that, but I think there's a lot of drawing time and like waiting time, I think, involved in the craft to some extent. So yeah, this is definitely going to take the longest, but it has "and" in the title, and therefore it definitely works. So in terms of my craft and what color scheme I want to go with, I think I'm going to go with gold. That golden color, because that for sure is a significant part. The white would match the base color, I think. And then I'm looking also at the sprayed edge as well, and it pulls out some green, and there is green up here in the kind of accents as well. So I'm thinking green and gold, maybe. That's where my head's going right now. So I better get started on this while I set up an area for me to be crafting in, and we shall see how it goes. Okay. We're trying a little bit of a different setup this time. We have a puppy. So we're going to let Kylie say hi to you real quick. Okay, Kylie has been up here. She has inspected. She has approved. I always lay down. I have this blanket on my table to protect it. I lay down my own layer of wax paper, but they also provided me with wax paper, which is really handy of them. It's a nice thick one too. So I think we'll put this down as well. Maybe tape it a little bit so it stays in place. Kylie is having her treat that I used to bribe her to get back off the table because she wanted to hang out with us, but she was blocking the camera, which kind of defeats the purpose of having the camera. And I've read the first little bit of the instructions, and it does say that this particular type of resin stuff dries extremely quickly, so I do need to have everything ready to go so I can move quickly. So let us pull everything out. I'm assuming sandpaper will be at the end. Gloves for handling the resin I need. The pigments that I wanted to use. Ooh, I think dark green and gold, or golden. I think that's good. And these are shake before you, please shake before use. That's all they say on it. So not a lot of detail as to what they are, but shake, 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 shake. Shake, 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 shake. And we have our liquid resin, our powdered resin, also this needs shaking. We have cups. Guessing I need one for each color. Stirrers. Got a big one for mixing originally, and I think the little ones for the colors, and a spreader as well. And of course our molds. Okay, I am going to start my book and get to crafting. time, ignore the absolute disaster that is my kitchen currently. It always kind of is, honestly. But I did get a new toy, which you might see in this vlog. Eventually it'll show up. So I had to do a lot of rearranging last night just to make sure that it's in decent condition, since the packing box it came in was a little bit beat up when I picked it up from my dad's house. So there's that. I am also, let's see what I am also. I've been listening to the audiobook mostly so far, so I need to consult it for where I am. But I am 7% into Reign of Shadows and Endings, and initial thoughts. It's a very easy read. It's very much one that I'm no longer quite as worried about picking up a 23-hour audio for the space of this vlog. Will it still take me a lot more time to read than to finish this particular craft? Absolutely. But that's okay. I've got crochet. I've got other things I can kind of, keep doing alongside of this. So far, easy read. The kind of thing originally that I wasn't sure about this series, even though I really, really enjoyed the previous series from this author, is that there is a whole non-consent issue at the beginning of this. This is a world where the gods kind of created their legacy, their ultimate people, and then took off. The Fae lived to serve the legacy. They were created to serve the legacy. This is how their world functions. This is what they believe about the role of the Fae in this world. Every so many years, the Fae who are of eligible age are all gathered together, and the legacy, the 6 different kingdoms of this legacy, choose their source. And the Fae don't really get a choice in this. Some of them have known, since birth practically, that they have been the chosen. Most going into this, the different people who get to choose already have in mind who they are going to take. And the group of Fae who have gathered here, the friends and so forth, they kind of know that they're not likely to be chosen. We are following Tessalin, and she's just someone trying to get by, looking forward to this night being over, doesn't expect to be chosen, but of course she is chosen. She's chosen by the heir from the Kingdom of Endings, and she is really not happy about this. She's trying to get out of it. She is not looking forward to being the source of this man's magic. So that is where I'm at currently. But my understanding is that the non-consent issue kind of gets resolved pretty early on in the series and it becomes something else. That's my understanding going into it. Already we're seeing that this man, whose name I completely don't know in this particular moment, it's the Arius Kingdom, it's the darkest of kingdoms. I don't think he has a name in the synopsis unless I'm completely missing it. I think Theon. Theon is his name, if I'm remembering correctly. In any case, I think we're already seeing that he is being caring towards her to some extent. He's not being brutal, although in this, there's definitely a power imbalance. So it remains to be seen how I feel about that on an ongoing basis. But so far I would say I'm liking it. So I had a few issues with my, crafting so far. I forgot to turn the film on at the very beginning. I forgot I had paused it when I was finishing up my setup. And then it turned out the bottles of dye needed to be opened more than I thought. So I rushed and panicked, did that, dropped a lid in. You guys probably saw some of that. Anyway, I have my dried pieces now. I didn't get the colors I thought I was going to get. I thought I was going to get a darker green, and maybe if I had mixed in more, I would have. So I wound up mixing extra of the dye into part of the green, but it's really more of a teal and yellow, not a green and gold. But it is what it is. So I do like the teal. I do like the color the teal came out to. The yellow, I'm less enthused by, but we're going to see how it goes because we have the most of the yellow. So at this point, I've let it dry long enough. It was supposed to dry for at least 20 minutes. Let me actually switch you down so you can see what I'm seeing. So it's basically in flocks now. This is what the green is looking like. And I'm supposed to break it up into chips. And those are going to get mixed into the final product. So I'm going to go through and break all of these up, and then we will move on to next steps. I am back. I took a break. I figured might as well listen to more of my book since the book is going to take much longer than the craft. So I crushed up all my little chips. I think they're probably a bit bigger and uneven than they're meant to be, but you know what? It is what it is. We are creating a piece with character, not necessarily a piece with perfection. I never said I was great at crafts, just that I enjoy them. In any case, I had lunch. I've been watching some reading sprints, and I am now just past, I think, the 20% mark in the book. And I'm still having a good time with it. I definitely am getting more of a grasp on the system, although I have questions, but I think I'm meant to have questions at this stage of it all. Theon's father. We've met Theon's father, and Theon's father is our example in the book of how bad a bonding between a legacy person and their source can be, because the father is horrible. So I think that's providing the kind of opposite direction something can take, and showing that Tessa is not in the worst position she could be in, although she still has very little agency in the situation. Theon's letting her do a lot more behind closed doors and be rebellious and talk back and all of that. He's allowing that from her. The father, however, is horrible and abusive, and we see that with his paired source and also in the way he's treating his son's paired source. I also am definitely feeling for Tessa because she's having to go through this whole process of getting marks put on her, and once the final mark is there, then the bonding with the source will be complete, and it'll give Theon access to more of the magics that he can do once fully bonded. But she's really put through it with this. She is vomiting. She is like pained in every cell of her body through this process, and I'm definitely at the point where I can see why Theon's not like other legacy men, but also she's going through it, and there's definitely an imbalance of power still going on here. So still overall enjoying myself. In any case, now it is time to mix the rest of our powder with the rest of our liquid, create the base, and pull out our mold and pour it in. So we're going to mix the powder and the liquid together good. Then we're going to mix in the chips and then pour it into the mold. Make sure there's no like chips sticking out. That would create an uneven bottom to this. And then it's like 30 minutes, I think, to set. Allow to cure for 30 minutes. And then we move on from there. So that is the next step, and I will keep listening to my book. Okay, I messed up. I should have changed my battery. I did not change my battery. It died. And my camera didn't record the clip I filmed for you. So you'd missed the initial taking out of the mold of this. I've already been starting to do some of the sanding of it. So you can see the colors are starting to pop. When it first comes out, it is extremely white, kind of like this, where the chips are very hidden. This side, because I've been starting to sand it a bit, it's already starting to come out and get close to where it needs to be. So I should have stopped sooner so that it would have saved my clip, but that's okay. And in regards to the book, the other part of why we're here, I am about 35% of the way in. Not a whole lot of extra thoughts at this point. A couple of things that I didn't talk about the first chunk of updates is, one, I was surprised. This is like a world that's like modern recognizable to us while also being a fantasy world. We've got the kind of place they are feels very fantasy, like they're separated from the world, but then also along the way to the home where Theon and his family and his dad live, they stopped at a store and they discussed the purchase of flip-flops, which seemed like a very normal world type of thing, not a really fantasy world type of thing. But interestingly enough, apparently today is National Flip-Flop Day, so it was on point at least. I'm still feeling a little conflicted about the lack of consent that our main character Tessa has. And Theon is trying to make things easier on her, but it's still a power imbalance, and he still has the upper hand to be able to control her to some extent. I do really, really like that she is fighting back and that he's seeing her fighting back and reacting to it in different ways. He's frustrated with her, but he also kind of admires her at times. And I do like that push and pull of it all. So I would say it's still going pretty well. But, you know, we're getting close to final steps with this, and I still have 2/3 of the book to go. So I am going to try to film some of my sanding here, see if we can improve this a little bit more than I already have, and keep listening to my book while we do that. So am I still frustrated with myself? Yes. Am I feeling super happy with how this is looking? Not 100%. It's certainly not matching the book in any way, shape, or form. But I think as the chips are coming out to some extent, I think if I had gotten smaller, thinner chunks, I probably would have had a little bit more color coverage than I do here. But also, I think a little bit more sanding will help with that. So we're going to keep going and see what we wind up with. 10 minutes later. Okay, it is essentially done. The resin isn't completely considered cured for 24 hours, so it'll be sitting out for a while. But aside from the fact that it doesn't at all go with the vibes of the book, I think it turned out okay. I think I went a little subtle on the colors. If I had used darker colors, it probably would stand out more, but I'm not minding it. So the last thing I was doing was the sealant wax. You put it on it, you left it for 5 to 10 minutes, and that helps to seal it a little bit. I might decide to do one more layer of that at some point, but for now, I'm just gonna let it sit and rest and finish curing, and at some point I need to clean up this mess, but that's where we're at. I have no more book thoughts because I've really not read in the last 10 minutes. So I'm going to get back to that, and we'll be back probably at the end, given that I'm past the 1/3 mark at this point, and give you some final thoughts to wrap this up. Much later, I have finished up Reign of Shadows and Endings, and mixed feelings on this one in the end. Overall, I really enjoyed the plot and the world, what we get of it, and the writing was immersive. I was able to very easily listen along and do my crafting, do crochet later in the day after my craft was finished, and overall, generally really intrigued to see where this is going to go going forward. As we get further in the book, we get more reveals about what Theon's plan is, why he tapped in Tessa to be his source, what his reasoning was behind that, and the feelings involved, and also the practicality involved. We learn more about Tessa and why she seems a little bit different than other girls, of course. But there is still the issue for me of the power imbalance between them that doesn't quite fully resolve. And there is one scene in particular where I just was mad at Theon, and he does something absolutely horrible and despicable, and he knows what he's doing. And I'm having a hard time forgiving him for that. And the bullying aspect of this might be just a little dark for me, but I'm still intrigued. I'm still really interested. There was still a lot about it that I did like, so I can kind of continue on from this aspect that I'm really interested in the book and where the series goes. I think we're going to see less of the power imbalance going forward, just my general inclinations with it. So I am definitely planning to pick up book 2, maybe not necessarily physically buy it, but look to get it from the library. I think that might be the plan. But in any case, this was a good chunky book for my team, so in that regard it was a success. The purpose of this particular vlog series is to do a craft based on a book. So here's the book, here's the craft. Do they in any way, shape, or form match? No, not really at all. I mean, the white on the cover and the white on this match. That's about all I can say. So in the sense of trying to get something to like match the vibes, I could go really out there and say the broken pieces in here being formed together to make a whole could match the vibes of our main character Tessa in here being broken down repeatedly throughout the book. But, you know, that's a stretch. So a little bit of a flop on the matching, but still the tray came out as intended pretty well. I think if I were to do it over again, I would have used darker colors so they would have stood out better. I think the dye, the instructions said to add a few drops of dye, and I added quite a bit of dye to the material, and the colors turned out pretty light. The yellow got a little bit darker, but it's just yellow, so it doesn't show up as much. I would have definitely added a lot more of the green, or maybe if I really wanted to match the book better, I would have done a darker yellow and black and done it that way to make it a little more matchy. But the instructions telling me that the setting process happened so quickly had me a little bit worried to spend too much time messing with the colors. And I think now that I know the process, I know I could have taken a little more time, added more color, and gone that way. I probably would have made the chips a little bit thinner as well, but you live, you learn. This one didn't come with enough of the extra material to make more, but I do still have the silicone mold. I certainly have enough of the dyes, so if ever I wanted to try using this kind of powdered resin material again, I certainly could. But with that, I am going to wrap us up here. I'm really glad actually that my TBR game decided it had been too long since last I did one of my crafting projects, and I really wound up having fun doing this. Definitely eager to pick up another one in the not too distant future. Let me know in the comments below, have you read the book? Let me know your thoughts, or what's a craft that you enjoy doing apart from your reading or while you're reading. Let me know all the things down below. And if you made it this far and you don't have anything to comment, but you want to let me know you were here, how about leaving me an emoji related to weather for rain in Reign of Shadows and Ending? If you could hit that like button below, I would surely appreciate it, and subscribe if you're interested in more of my crafting projects, more of my book reviews, and more of my bookish content in general. But for now, I'll leave you here and see you real soon in a new video.